At the start of 2020, my family was the richest family in the neighborhood. Now they're the poorest, and it's all because of me. How did that happen? Stay tuned until the end of the video to find out. Hey you, have you subscribed yet? If you haven't, then make sure to do it now. Oh, and hit that notification bell so you won't end up losing everything too. I laid on my bed staring up at the ceiling. My room was every teenage boy's dream. I had a top-of-the-range computer with the latest gaming equipment and the best sound system money could buy, but I was still bored. You would think that living in this huge mansion would be great, but I missed my friends and my old life. I thought about how much fun I used to have when we lived at our old house. I was always out on my bike with my friends or playing soccer on the field. But ever since we had moved here, I never got to hang out with any of my friends. They all lived too far away. Suddenly, a knock at the door broke me from my thoughts. Come in. The door opened and in walked Jeeves, our butler. Yes, Jeeves?
Excuse me, sir. Dinner is about to be served.
Okay, thank you. I'll be down in a minute.
Very good, sir.
When I got downstairs, I went straight to the dining room. It's a huge room with wood paneling and an expensive Persian carpet. The dining table extends the whole length of the room. As I walked down to the other side of the room, all the servants who were lined up against the wall nodded to me. I didn't know any of their names. There were too many of them to possibly remember. My sister Sarah was already sitting at the table, her eyes glued to her iPhone X as usual. Hi, Sarah. I didn't expect to get a reply from her. She barely said a word to me these days. A couple of minutes later, my mom and dad joined us. They were hardly recognizable. They had both had that much plastic surgery done. I wondered why they did it to themselves. I mean, it wasn't as though they looked good. Once we were all seated, the servants began bringing out the dinner on silver plates. Tonight was no different to any other night. We always had a huge feast fit for a king. Lobster, king prawns, caviar, you name it, we had it. You're probably thinking how lucky I was, but to be honest, I was bored of eating all that luxury food. I was craving some normal food, like pizza or a burger. We all started eating. I was hoping that tonight we might have some conversation for a change. It seemed as though recently none of us had anything to say to each other. But then my mom asked Sarah a question.
How was school today, Sarah?
Sarah just grunted, but at least it was a start. I was starting to feel a bit happier. I had a good day, Mom. I played... But before I could go on, I was interrupted by the sound of my mom's phone ringing.
Sorry, Daniel. I have to get this. It's work.
I sighed and picked up my fork again, just when I thought that things might be different. I should have known better. Now that Mom had left the table, the three of us just sat in silence. The only sound to be heard was the clinking of cutlery. Once I had finished eating, I asked to be excused. Please, may I leave the table, Dad? My dad just nodded at me and went back to looking at his phone. When I got up to my room, I took out my diary and started writing in it. I'm so unhappy. Nobody in my family talks anymore. It's like we're all living completely separate lives. I flipped back through my diary, reading the entries. How can my life have gotten so bad? 2 years ago, my diary was full of hope and dreams. My life sounded so fun, but now it was all doom and gloom. You see, 2 years ago was when my whole life changed. Well, my whole family's life changed, actually. My parents had won the lottery. Before that, we lived in a small house and had a simple life. When I first found out that we had won a huge amount of money, I was so excited. Can I have my own computer now?
Of course you can. We can all have anything we want.
I was really close to Mom and Dad at that time. We spent every evening together, either watching TV or playing cards or board games. I never thought that it would change just because we had money, but it did. Once we moved to our new house, I hardly saw my family. The house was so huge that you could sometimes go hours without bumping into anyone else. I ended up spending all of my time in my room, alone. I really wish we could go back to living like we used to live. I miss spending time with my family. The more and more I thought about how good it used to be, the more I wished we didn't have all the money we now had. If only there was a way to get rid of the money. That's when I came up with my plan. I've always been good with computers, so it didn't take me long to find out the original lottery ticket code and the winning numbers. I went to a website and made a duplicate copy of the winning ticket. The next thing I did was make a call to the lottery company telling them that I suspected the Robinson family had a fake ticket. I have the real winning ticket here. The ticket that the Robinsons showed you was a fake one.
Well, that is a very serious allegation. We will definitely look into it for you. We will get back to you once we have done some investigating.
Now all I had to do was swap the duplicate ticket with the real winning one. I knew that my parents had put the winning ticket in the safe downstairs, So I waited until my parents had gone out, and I snuck down to my dad's office. It didn't take me long to find the combination number. My dad used the same number for all his bank cards. I took out the original ticket and replaced it with the duplicate one. It was a couple of days later when I was sitting in the lounge watching TV that my dad got the phone call. I watched as his face turned white and a shocked look spread across it.
Okay, yes, we can come in.
He put the phone down and turned to my mom.
That was the lottery company. Something about a discrepancy on our winning ticket.
What discrepancy?
They didn't say. They just asked for us to take the ticket in so it could be checked.
Oh, well, I don't think it's anything to be concerned about, dear.
I suppose you're right.
The next morning, my parents set off to the lottery company's headquarters, the fake winning ticket safely in my mom's bag. I gave them a few minutes head start, then I changed my clothes and put on a blonde wig. My disguise made me look much older than I really was. I had the real winning ticket in my wallet. When I arrived at the headquarters, the receptionist showed me to the manager's office. My parents were already sitting there waiting. I was a little nervous in case they recognized me, but I needn't have worried as they hardly gave me a glance. The manager came in and explained what was happening.
We need to see your ticket, as this man claims that he has the real winning ticket.
What? No, he doesn't. We have the ticket.
I watched as my mom took the ticket out of her bag and handed it to the manager to inspect. He took his time looking over the ticket and then asked me to show him the ticket that I had. I took the ticket out of my wallet and handed it to him. I could immediately see from his face that he knew that my ticket was the real one.
I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Robinson. Your ticket isn't real. This man has the real winning ticket.
What? No, it can't be true.
My parents were distraught.
But we bought that ticket. We are the real winners. I'm sorry, you're going to have to return all the money. This man here is the real winner. We will have to give him the winnings.
When my parents heard that, they both burst into tears.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. How are we going to manage without all the money?
I know. I can't go back to living how we used to live. I won't be able to survive without my weekly pampering at the spa.
This is terrible. How are we going to get through this? We're going to have to sell everything. The house, the car, all your jewelry.
Oh, not my diamond earrings.
Yes, dear. I'm afraid everything will have to go.
At that point, my mom started wailing like a baby.
It's not fair. I don't want to be poor.
You probably think I should have felt sad seeing them like that, but I wasn't. I was happy. All I could think about was if they didn't have the money anymore, then our lives would be back to normal again.
Anyway, Mr. and Mrs. Robinson, I'm afraid I'll have to draw our meeting to a close now. I'm sorry things turned out this way, but perhaps it'll be a lesson for you. You shouldn't have made a fake ticket in the first place.
But we didn't. I just don't understand how this could have happened.
Once the meeting was over, I rushed back home to get there before my parents did. When they arrived home and told Sarah and I what had happened, I pretended to be sad.
I know you two must be feeling unhappy right now, but we were okay before we got the money, and we will be okay again.
My parents put the mansion up for sale, sold everything we owned, and moved into a tiny little apartment. The lottery company paid the winning money into my bank account, since that was the account I gave them as the disguised man. But it was only there for a matter of hours before I donated it all to a local charity. I didn't want anything to do with that money. It had brought me nothing but misery. And even though we didn't have any of the luxuries that the money had given us, we had more than that. We had each other. It didn't take long before we were back to how we used to be. We would sit around the little kitchen table eating sandwiches and chatting about our day. We played cards and watched TV together. I was so happy. Finally, my life was perfect again. But then one day, it all went wrong. I had just got home from school. I went into the kitchen and found my parents and Sarah sitting at the table. I immediately saw that they had a blonde wig in their hands. I couldn't believe it. It was the wig that I had used when I had disguised myself as the other lottery winner. The clothes I had worn were there too. My heart sank. How could I have been so stupid? I must have left the clothes in my bag. I should have thrown them and the wig away.
Daniel, we found these in your bag. How come you have them?
I tried to think of a good excuse, but my mind went completely blank.
Please don't tell me that you were the man that claimed the winning ticket.
I knew that there was no way I could deny it. I mean, they had the evidence right there in front of me. Okay, yes, it was me.
But why? Why would you do that?
Because I hated my life. I hated that we never spoke to each other anymore. You never had time for me, and I missed my old life.
But we could have anything we wanted with all that money.
All I wanted was for us to be a normal family, and now we are.
But where did you get the ticket from?
I made a duplicate ticket and took the original one out of your safe.
Oh, Daniel, what have you done?
Look, you have to admit that we're happier now. All that money brought us was loneliness. Now we have each other again.
No, Daniel, now you have nothing.
What do you mean?
We can never forgive you for what you have done to us. We don't want anything more to do with you.
You don't mean that.
Oh, yes, we do.
You can pack your bags right now and move out. We never want to see you again.
I couldn't believe what my parents were saying. Surely they couldn't just disown me. But it turns out they could do exactly that. I packed all of my stuff up and left the house. They forced me to. I wandered the streets for hours trying to find a place to stay. Eventually, I came across an old derelict house and thought that maybe I could take shelter there. But when I opened the door, an old tramp who was obviously living there already screamed at me.
Get out! Get out! There's no room here!
I was almost about to give up on ever finding anywhere when I came across an old warehouse. It didn't look like anything had been in it for years. I pushed open the door and went inside. It was smelly and damp, but at least I would be dry if it started to rain. My first night sleeping rough was miserable. The stone floor was cold and uncomfortable, and the place was full of rats. I only managed to get a couple of hours of sleep. The rest of the time, I just laid there, thinking about my life when we had the money. How could I have been so stupid? I didn't appreciate how lucky I was living in that mansion and having everything I wanted. Sure, my family didn't speak to each other, but it wasn't that bad. Well, definitely not as bad as sleeping in this old warehouse. And that was when I realized, maybe throwing away all of our money like that wasn't the best decision I've ever made.